Britain. Some call it the worst place on the planet.
Well, at least I have free healthcare, and I don't have to worry about getting shot in my school.
Some call it the home to some of the greatest movies of all time. Whether it be the actors, writers, directors, or even just the location in general, Britain as a whole has given us some of the most truly amazing films. I mean, really, who can forget such classics as Run for Your Wife? A movie that just straight up claims to be the best that Britain has to offer. That should really tell you all you need to know right then and there. Or how about Fat Slugs? Or, wait, Fat Slags? Am I allowed to say that? Is that gonna get me canceled? Anyways, Fat Slags. A movie that was somehow made in the 21st century. And honestly, just based on this poster, might just need its own video. But unfortunately, we're not going to be talking about those absolute classic pieces of cinema. We're going to be talking about some movies you don't remember. Over the next couple of videos, we're going to be focusing on 3 different British movies that were all forgotten by most, even though, in my own personal opinion, they're all really fucking good. In their own unique ways, of course. I've also spent the past however the fuck long trying to upload a goddamn video on the Kingsman franchise, and I don't know if Matthew Vaughn himself just hates me or what, but I've uploaded and re-edited the video probably about 3,000 times by this point, and it's still just not working for me. So if I can't talk about those 3 British movies, I'm going to talk about these completely random 3 British movies. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Also, by the way, I know literally nothing about Britain, never been there, nothing. I just thought it would be funnier if the comparison between these 3 movies was the fact that they're all British, rather than the fact that they're underrated. So, 2015 was a huge year for movies. You had the Jurassic Park and Star Wars franchises returning to cinemas after years of lying dormant, Furious 7, Avengers Age of Ultron, Spectre, The Martian. Even the fucking Minions made $1 billion in 2015. So with all this success throughout cinemas, it's no surprise that a few movies went under the radar this year. One such film was Legend, which, boring and unoriginal name aside,
Warning! Huge legend entering the building! Warning!
is a super fun and inventive movie that not nearly enough people still talk about. Legend was released to okay critical success, and with a relatively small budget, seemed to at the very least hopefully break even financially. But for some reason they decided to release the film the same day as the last film in the Hunger Games franchise, which probably didn't do anything to help out Legend. Cause even though Legend is obviously 1,000 times better than this dumpster fire of a movie, obviously the Hunger Games film is gonna make more money than this random ass gangster movie. Nonetheless, at this point, Legend is almost 7 years old, and I'm pretty sure I'm about the only person who's ever talked about this movie since it came out, and I really don't get why. While far from a perfect film, Legend was written and directed by Brian Helgeland, whose filmography is mixed to say the least. And while I haven't seen everything he's put out, from what I have seen, I can safely say that Legend is the best. Legend is based on a true story, and follows the lives of twin brothers Ronald and Reginald Cray, both played here by Tom Hardy in a rare dual role. Chances are, if you remember anything about this movie, you remember the marketing heavily leaning into the fact that there were 2 Toms.
Reggie was a gangster prince of the East End. Ron Cray was a one-man mob.
And I can't say I blame them. Tom Hardy was a rising star at the time, and 2015 alone was arguably his biggest year in terms of making him a household name. Besides Legend, Hardy was the titular character in Mad Max Fury Road, and only a month after Legend's release, he played opposite to Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. And that's not even considering these 2 other random movies that came out in 2015 that I've never seen. But while Legend isn't the best movie out of these 5 films, I do believe it's got Hardy's best performance. But before we get into that performance, or performances, let's go over the story a little bit. The film is told over the duration of Reggie's relationship with his soon-to-be wife Frances, played here by Emily Browning. The movie is mainly told from her perspective, and begins from the day her and Reggie meet, up until and a little bit after the day of her death. Browning really does do a great job here, and it's a shame that she doesn't get more acting roles, with this film being her third to last gig, as of the time of filming at least. The central plot for the film is about the Kray twins' rise and eventual fall to power in the London Underground during the 1960s. By day, the twins are hanging out with their mom and running their multiple nightclubs and casinos, but by night, well, they're still pretty much doing the same thing. But their primary goal isn't to be real businessmen. Even though they do a pretty good job at it and could easily live successful lives, the Kray twins are gangsters at heart. They wanted to rule London with an iron fist and would do just about anything to have it. Violence was their specialty, and they were damn good at it. However, you probably really wouldn't be able to tell that from this film. One of the few main faults of Legend is the action, or more specifically the choreography. While the film definitely isn't an action movie per se, there are still a number of fight scenes that just aren't really shot very well. Particularly the big fight between the twins themselves. When I first saw this movie back in 2015, I remember that scene being the highlight of the entire film, but clearly I was just a stupid ass kid because the limitations of having both characters be played by the same actor are definitely apparent here.
No! Run!
As well as the fact that Ronald and Reggie really don't share all that much screen time, which is a shame because they're definitely the highlight of the film. This is really the only thing that left me disappointed here though. As I'll get into more a little later, the movie really is special and unique when the twins are on screen together. And after rewatch, I have to admit, there isn't as much of the duo as I remembered or hoped for. The film is also unfortunately a little tonally inconsistent. Whenever it shifts from the badass fun gangster shenanigans,
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
And focuses on Reggie and Francis's relationship, the film really grinds to a halt to focus on that. While it is still entertaining enough due to both Browning and Hardy's performance, and does serve as the whole story's through line at the end of the day, you really just spend those scenes waiting for them to switch back to the more exciting stuff. The pacing, similar to the tone, is a little inconsistent as well. With movie taking place over so many years, the timeline is bound to become hard to follow by the end. But this is an issue all these biopics have in common, so I can't be that mad. The plot is also pretty predictable and surprisingly simple for a movie like this. But it's also based on real events and real people, so it's not like it's the writer's fault or anything. I guess the most notorious gangsters in all of Britain just had basic lives. But enough of the bad, let's talk about what Legend does well. Starting with that score, Jesus Christ is good. It's this super dark, somehow almost nostalgic, noir reminiscent music that fits way too perfectly with the rest of the movie. The only downside I could think about is that you don't hear it more throughout the film. The narration provided by Francis also helps with that noir aesthetic, and provides in making Legend that much more badass. The supporting cast is also surprisingly good here, and has some pretty big names. You got motherfuckers like Paul Anderson, David Thewlis, Paul Bettany, Chaz Palminteri, Colin Morgan, and Taron Egerton in a sinfully small role as Matt Teddy, Ron's boyfriend throughout the movie, who is so charming and so stupid, and in turn just about steals every single scene in the entire film.
Something fucking useful.
Good.
Now, while I already said the action in Legend isn't anything too special, the violence and carnage that takes place while said action is going on is definitely something worth writing home about. The movie goes out of its way to show just how down and dirty the twins are ready to get, and pull no punches in showing this either. I've put it off for long enough though. If we're gonna talk about what really makes this movie so underrated, it's time we talk about the legends themselves, Ronald and Reggie Kray. Reggie is definitely more the main character here, and gets a lot more to do than Ron. And Hardy pulls that sophisticated, but still crazed character off perfectly, where even after you see Reggie murder, steal, and eventually abuse his wife into suicide, you still can't stop appreciating his performance and fighting herself enthralled whenever he's on screen. Hardy is able to switch from the put-together professional to the bloodthirsty criminal on the drop of a dime. But you don't really get to see the full extent of Hardy's acting until you get to Ronald. Ronald Cray is a mentally disabled, gay psychopath who wants nothing more than to see the world burning at his and his brother's feet. And Tom Hardy goes 100% into this performance. Ron is definitely the most entertaining character in the movie, and each and every time he's on screen is a treat to watch. So much so that I might honestly have to say that Ronald Cray is Tom Hardy's best performance he's ever given in his entire career. Up until this point, at least.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now, if you don't believe me, that's fine, but all I'm saying is go and watch the movie yourself, then you can come back and tell me I'm wrong. It's just that the unpredictability and insane tendencies of Ron leave you watching him feeling scared, excited, and everything in between.
Well, no. Right, you get him out of it. Go on, fuck off.
The brothers' dialogue as well is also fun, with plenty of quotable lines between the both of them.
I want to blow the soul out of home.
I think it's safe to say that without Tom Hardy here, the movie definitely wouldn't have gotten as much praise as it already did, which, to be fair, wasn't very much in the first place. As for the rest of the story, the brothers of course end up becoming the kings of London's crime scene, at the cost of Reggie's already crumbling relationship with Frances. Although rather unsurprisingly, right as the brothers are beginning to finally hit their peak, it all comes crashing down due to both of their violent tendencies, leading to both of the brothers going to jail until their deaths. Legend also ends with one of those things where it shows the real picture of what the actual character looks like, and then it says what happens to them after the events of the movie. I don't know if there's an actual name for what that is, but I like when movies do that. I think it's a good way to end a film. At the end of the day, I can see why Legend failed to leave an impact. This was a huge year for blockbuster movies, especially ones already starring Tom Hardy. Legend failed to provide anything recognizable or enthralling enough to get people to see it, which is a shame because there are some pretty fun scenes. But I would be lying if I said the movie would be worth watching at all if it wasn't for the Cray brothers themselves. I guess moral of the story is, if you want your mediocre action movie to be received way better than it has any right to, just throw Tom Hardy in it. So yeah, that was my analysis on Legend. I hope you guys liked it. Hopefully I never take such a long break from uploading again, and a new video comes out sometime next week. If you did make it this far in, I'm just gonna have to do the basic YouTuber shit and ask you to like, comment, and please consider subscribing. It does a lot to help out, especially with a channel as small as mine. But with all that being said, I've been Cult45. See you next time.